So I did a video on the Miller Lite commercial situation, and I laid out my thoughts and opinions on that. So if you're interested, you can go check it out. It's one of my more recent videos. But in that video, to make a long story short, I said that it was a big deal. In fact, it was worse than you thought. Because what this company was doing was alienating their core audience to appeal to a phantom, mythical female audience that is never going to be as impactful as their male audience. And so, for some inexplicable reason, they decided to go on this anti man feminist campaign. And in doing so, not only did they disparage the bulk majority of their customers, but they also clowned themselves by saying there's something wrong with our old marketing campaigns, which show women in bikinis. Now, the irony of this, and I think that Brett Cooper in the video that we're going to watch, because she did a reaction as well, she brings up a good point that women today feel empowered going on OnlyFans. They feel empowered going on OnlyFans and not just selling like a bikini picture, but full on goat seeing their asshole for $4.99 a month. There are no secrets there. You got a fiver, you can see every crevice that woman has ever had. So, the point here is that it is egregious to me to vilify something that is so completely and totally harmless while vilifying the men that have made the beer industry what it is today, and to take this unfunny, hypocritical comedian, and I use comedian in quotes, and try to use that as a bludgeon against men who buy beer. Even people who buy Miller Lite. I don't like Miller Lite personally. I think it tastes absolutely terrible. But my point is that this is a major problem. The companies and corporations feel comfortable disparaging men so casually and freely in this way. Yeah, not a huge fan of it. So, we're going to be watching a video from Brett Cooper. And yeah, I'm all about different perspective. Now, her and I are, I mean, we're diametrically opposed on most things. Because she is part of the Daily Wire, you know. But let's see if she makes any good points here, and I will come at this with a fair and open mind if she makes any good points. But based on this title, I gotta say, I'm not exactly optimistic.
I get that boobs sell, guys. Welcome back to the comment section. I'm Brett Cooper. We are talking about beer again today, except today it's not Bud Light. We're talking about Miller Lite. There's an ad going around on social media. You guys have probably seen it. It's making the rounds in all the right-wing circles. And people are claiming that Miller Lite is preparing their own grave.
Not just right-wing circles. Tim Pool has talked about this, libertarian, independent, a little bit left of center. They've been talking about this as well. And there's a reason for it, and we'll go over it as we get into the video.
But I'm not totally sure, and I actually think that this outrage is a bit misplaced.
Well, I could understand you thinking that because you're a woman. This ad doesn't insult you. This ad is not offensive to you because you're not being insulted. In fact, in this ad, women are being told, "Oh, you're stunning and brave and amazing, and you're incredible, and you helped to create beer." Now, this is affirmation bullshit. This is a complete and total lie. This is trying to include women in something that they had absolutely no part in creating, giving them credit for something that they didn't earn. Essentially, this is the Jada Pinkett Smith Netflix Queen Cleopatra moment, not the Bud Light moment. So I understand why she doesn't feel personally offended by this, but as a man who drinks beer, yeah, this is pretty egregious. It's trying to eliminate the accomplishments of men. And by the way, this in a vacuum, you could say, okay, it's not that big of a deal. But we have a years long coordinated campaign to remove testosterone and masculinity and male achievement and accomplishment from society. So this is just yet another example of a bunch of gender studies majors getting a job saying, well, men aren't really that great. Men are terrible. Men are awful. And by the way, a lot of those ad execs are women in their, mid to late 30s who have been ran through that men don't want to date. They'll use them. They'll run a train on them if they have to, but they're not really interested in wiping up any of these women. So they have this perception of men that men are all terrible, when in reality it's their own choices that have led to the position that they're in, which is just interesting because then they choose to blame men and take absolutely no accountability for the fact that they chose to be a hoe at their prime. Essentially, their best years to lock down a husband and live a happy, successful life, success by the standard of human imperative, they chose instead to just take a bunch of dick and then become bitter and angry and just completely repellent to most normal people.
Before we get into it, though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel if you've not already, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a comment section or off the clock episode. Alrighty, so let's just watch this video.
Here's a little known fact. Women were among the very first to brew beer ever. From Mesopotamia to the Middle Ages to colonial America, women were the ones doing the brewing. Centuries later, how did the industry pay homage to the founding mothers of beer? They put us in bikinis. Wow.
I just have to stop before we get into it because it is so ironic, the faux outrage over this when women today are literally putting themselves on OnlyFans and dancing around half naked on TikTok. It's like, do we like this? Is this empowering or is it awful? Feminists need to get on the same page. We need to have one idea because this is all absurd. Anyway, all right, we're gonna finish.
Look at this wild. It's time beer made it up to women. So today, Miller Lite is on a mission to clean up not just their but the whole beer industry's Miller Lite has been scouring the internet for all this and buying it back so that they can turn it into good for women brewers. Literally, good
First, we turn the bad into compost. Then we feed compost to worms. Push out beautiful fertilizer.
That good helps farmers grow quality hops,
which is then donated to women brewers to make their own really good
But there's definitely more out there. In your attic, in the garage, in your parents' basement. Send any you got into Miller Lite and they'll turn that into good too. So here's to women, because without us, there would be no beer.
So that is the ad that has everybody freaking out. And people are going like, oh my God, Miller Lite went woke. This is so awful. Look what they're doing. It was annoying.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you put it that way, they went woke and they overreacted. It's like, your framing of it in that, by the way, high-pitched, nasally, naggy, just absolutely insufferable tone of voice. I'm, just, I don't know. I don't usually watch Brett Cooper. Is this a common thing? I mean, this is the tone of voice that I hear in my nightmares when I'm watching a game. And, it's just like, are you saying that you don't think that there's any credibility to the people that have watched this, who are men, by the way, and have more of a voice in this conversation than you do because they're the ones being insulted? That you don't think they have a leg to stand on, that this was a completely bastardized, belligerent, just completely out of touch, tone deaf, ridiculous take on this particular topic? That women have made beer forever, and that beer is a women's invention, and that all of those advertisements that you liked in the past, well, those are offensive now, and they're going to take them down and turn them into fertilizer. By the way, that's absolutely disgusting. All that ink and chemicals. Tim Pool was 100% right. I would never consume a beer that was made under those circumstances.
I hated all the bleeping. That was just weird. And I don't really like that comedian. She was in Broad City. I don't actually think that she's very funny, and she loves Hillary Clinton. So that like drops her really low in my book.
And she has Black Lives Matter in her bio. And yeah, she's pretty repellent on social media.
You need to stop dressing like a Soviet streetwalker.
But it wasn't crazy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, crazy by what standard? Was it a feminist screeching and screaming? Well, you know, in a term, she was naggy and she was high-pitched and she was insufferable. But the whole premise of the ad is that men aren't responsible for beer. Women are responsible for beer. Women did this. And by the way, you're awful for liking those old ads that had beautiful women. Yeah, no, that's pretty awful. And by the way, that's what leads to some of the more degenerate shit that we see by taking just basic male desire, taking things that men like, and trying to turn it into something to be villainized. That's how we get to the place that we're in today. And by the way, I already mentioned it, but women taking credit for things that they didn't do and don't deserve to take credit for is why women have an overinflated sense of self, because society is telling women that you did everything, you were in charge of everything, you're brilliant, wonderful, benevolent, you're all this. No, you're fucking not. I guarantee Brett Cooper or anyone else couldn't name 5 female inventors. But you can name 5 male inventors, not because the patriarchy, because, I mean, to find 5 inventions made by a woman is a goddamn impossible task. Not impossible, improbable. Most people don't know because most of the inventions were made by men. That's a goddamn fact, baby.
Why are we all freaking out? This is nothing to the butt.
Well, you're not freaking out because you're not a man. You're a woman. This ad didn't offend you. This ad didn't offend you because it didn't involve you. The reason why the Dylan Mulvaney ad bothered you is because you had a man who was wearing a woman face and directly insulting you. This, to you, isn't offensive because it has nothing to do with you. Men are being insulted, and last time I checked, you're not a man. So you don't understand. You don't get it. Because you are like, well, what's the big deal? I'm a woman and I'm being given credit for something. I'm being given undeserved affirmation. Isn't that the norm? I don't understand. Why are people freaking out? Well, people are not freaking out. They're rightfully criticizing this fucking atrocious abomination of an ad. That, by the way, on its face is terrible, but also think about what they're suggesting. Taking these old inked pieces of paper and putting it into the soil to which you grow your food. That is disgusting. You know, people like Brett, you know, probably the type that shop at Whole Foods and like, oh, I love like the organic couscous. It's my favorite. How would you like it if your beer, well, or your, I don't know, what do you drink? Cosmopolitan. Basically, the olives for your martini were grown in soil. You know, this is a terrible example. But my point is, you wouldn't want food that you ate or drinks that you consumed to come from soil that was tainted by decades-old chemicals and ink. It's a terrible idea.
Bud Light scandal. scandal. Like, seriously, it really is not. But a lot of people disagree online. Somebody said, not an alcohol consumer, but I don't understand why any company would think that putting a clearly bitter person on screen would make people want to buy their product.
Yes. And I mentioned this in my other video. There are 1,000 different ways to get what you want when it comes to this. But the way that you go about it in modern advertising circles is by disparaging your core customer base to try to bring in a phantom audience. No, there are ways to do what you want, but you have to be subtle at it. You have to be good at it. Which is why if I were doing an ad like this, I wouldn't even mention men. And I wouldn't bring on a bitter feminist talking about how women were responsible for every accomplishment under the sun. That, well, from Mesopotamia to this, women have been making... No, they haven't. We know they haven't. It is a fiction. It is a delusion. And one that does not help sell your product.
I mean, people have every right to grumble about whatever, but that doesn't mean it makes me want to buy stuff from them. That actually is very, very accurate. I would prefer ads that are positive and uplifting about the product, not just pushing an agenda, but that's 2023 marketing for you. Because all advertisements now are propaganda.
What is a woman?
Great question. I'm not a woman, so I can't really answer that.
Other than being about the product. So as a result, they are very rarely positive or happy. Like, I just want a regular beer ad, maybe with a nice happy family. They're grilling out with some good rancher steak and having a nice beer and just hanging out.
Yeah, nice plug. But this is another example of somebody speaking on something that they have no fucking idea what they're talking about. Because, sweetheart, let me educate you for a second. There is an ad like that. There is an ad like that, and I will show it to you right now. Actually, and this was posted 6 days ago. This is Coors. Let me show you their ad.
The same Rocky Mountain water. The same brewing tradition that started 150 years ago in Golden, Colorado. Because when you're a favorite beer of rock stars, smugglers, cowboys, and presidents, you don't compromise. That's our legacy. What do you want to go down in history for? Coors Banquet. Start your legacy.
Do you see the difference? And why that ad is so egregious? Not one point in here did Rip from Yellowstone start talking about how men have always been so much better than women. We invented beer and women have just been taking the credit. No, it was a nice ad. It was an American ad. You felt like, a little bit of patriotic in there. That was a good ad. That was a good, solid, competently done ad that made you feel good about the product. Listen to what he says at first.
The same Rocky Mountain water. The same brewing tradition that started 150 years ago in Golden, Colorado.
Yeah, so that's, first and foremost, before anything else, bigging up the product in terms of the quality. That's the first thing that he comes out with. What was the other ad about? Women have been responsible for helping to create beer since the beginning of time. No, they haven't. And it's just shrill, obnoxious, and offensive to anyone with a functioning brain. And I don't blame Brett for not taking that seriously because she wasn't offended by the ad. She was offended by the Dylan Mulvaney ad because she was directly being offended. Dylan Mulvaney is wearing woman face. Dylan Mulvaney is somebody that is actively insulting women with everything that they do, which is why Brett and other women have taken it personally. But this ad didn't offend them at all. So they had a reaction that was pretty much in line with, well, if it doesn't affect me, then I don't really care. That's generally how women respond to situations. Like, this doesn't affect me in any way, so I don't give a shit. I'm not interested. Well, as a man who was insulted, not only by the low quality of the ad and the fact that they picked the most unfunny comedian on the planet to play in this, and the fact that it was not really an ad to sell beer, but an ad to sell woke identity politics. Yeah, pretty offended by it. Don't want anything to do with Miller Lite, and I think that's a perfectly reasonable response.
Now, guys, the price of meat has gone through the roof ever since inflation went from transitory to just the way we do. The lesson on gender. Beer brand, they donated to Trump, apparently. You can enjoy it with that. Myth Informed said, out, you can enjoy it and you can crack open not a Miller Lite, not a Bud Light, Yingling. Isn't that a beer brand? They donated to Trump, apparently. You can enjoy it with that. Myth Informed said all light beer ads must include a lesson on gender studies to improve their ESG score. Another person said, if it wasn't for the production value, I'd automatically assume that this was a spoof ad. Women were among the first to brew beer ever. Well, they were like half the people too. And women were in the kitchen. They were brewing the beer. What else did you expect? Now, like, obviously, it is annoying. Like I said, it is cringe. The outdated feminist talking points. It's too much. It really is like 2015, 2016 feminism. It's nothing compared to today. We have to admit that this woman had her clothes on, which is very impressive. And she was an actual biological woman, which is again impressive. It's sad that it is. It was not crazy. Like, the bare minimum, they used a real woman. It was not some person with a dick trying to be girly and a dumb girl who doesn't know.
You see how she frames that? Just listen. Listen to what she said. And that should tell you everything you need to know about women in general. She didn't think the ad was that crazy because the ad didn't have women with dicks. So there were no transgenders, there was no people in woman face, which directly affects her. So because there was nothing in that ad that directly insulted or affected her, then the ad really wasn't that bad. Even though the ad was fucking egregious on multiple fucking levels. On the level of the fact that it was a terrible, shockingly bad ad. It didn't promote the product, the quality, any of that. In fact, it pretty much did the opposite. It said, we're going to grow the hops for our beer on chemically soaked, ink-soaked oil. I mean, all that manure, all that shit is based off of this tainted stuff that we're doing for woke reasons. That is pretty fucking atrocious. That's pretty egregious. But it doesn't affect her. And this is a problem. You know, I know I'm going to get shit, but with listening to women on this stuff, and I've heard it before from other places, but women, generally speaking, when it doesn't affect them, give the absolute worst advice. It's the goddamn truth. You may be uncomfortable with it, you may not like it, but as the Macho Man said, you may not like it, but you got to accept it. And that's the truth. Brett Cooper didn't find it that bad because it didn't directly affect her. Now, as a man, a beer drinking man, yeah, I took great exception to that because it's bullshit from start to finish, and it's also disgusting. It's disgusting on multiple levels. That was a terrible ad. It should be rightfully buried, just buried underneath the prison.
Know anything about beer or March Madness.
It's the bare minimum, but you did it.
Liz Wheeler tweeted something similar and said, 5 years ago we'd be boycotting Miller Lite for this stupid feminist shit, pun intended, but at least they have actual women in their ad instead of a simpering man.
I don't give a shit if it's real women or fake women. Again, this just only reinforces my point. They're focusing on the fact that, well, at least it's a real woman espousing this ridiculous bullshit. No, absolutely not. That does not give you a pass. Being a quote-unquote real woman doesn't give you a pass to say this inane shit. This insufferable, brain-dead garbage. We need to start holding women to a higher fucking standard. If the standard is, you can say anything, but at least you're a woman. At least you're a woman espousing this brain-dead nonsense. Hey, tell me more about astrological signs. Tell me more about star signs. At least you're a biological woman. No, fuck that. Absolutely ridiculous.
Cosplaying a woman. Exactly. I would take this over the Dylan Mulvaney ad every single day. Somebody.
Why would you? Why is that the choice? Why is that the choice that you're presenting? I would take this over the Dylan Mulvaney ad. How about neither of them? How about the Dylan Mulvaney ad is bad because it offends you, because it's somebody playing a woman face. But how about... How about you show a little bit of empathy for somebody that's not yourself or your gender and understand that this ad was offensive to men? I know this is going to be a stretch because it has nothing to do with you. And they did say nice things about women, and you're a woman, and as we know, women are suckers for affirmation. But maybe for a single solitary second, think critically and past your own feelings and in your own emotions. Hey, is it that time of the month? Maybe just think about what's being said here, how it's being said, the way it's being delivered, and realize it doesn't matter if it's a chick with a dick, it doesn't matter if it's somebody LARPing about being a woman. If what's being said is egregious, I don't care what they have between their legs. If something is not passing the smell test, if it's something that you can obviously see is wrong, don't care who's saying it, they deserve to be criticized, mocked, and, metaphorically speaking, put down.
Commented and said, and what's wrong with pretty toned in shape women wearing bikinis? Another guy said, I didn't hear a word she said over all those clothes she was wearing. Another person said, why is it a crime to love beer and bikinis? The men are very upset.
Yeah. So, oh God, I gotta pull myself back a little bit. I'm not trying to come down too hard on Brett. I get that she doesn't understand. She doesn't, she's a woman. How can you expect her to understand problems that don't have to do with her? But yeah, it's pretty clear. The men have made it very, very clear. Their preferences, their likes, and the things that they enjoy are being vilified. So yeah, they do take it personally. They do have an issue with it. I do have an issue with it. Because there's nothing wrong with those ads. Those ads were beautiful.
Yeah. This comment also stood out to me. This guy said, 5 years ago, no one would have boycotted because we weren't all offended by everything and we just lived our lives.
No. That's absolute bullshit. That is something, that is the most fortune cookie nonsense. When I was growing up, there was a show called Married with Children. It's one of the best shows on TV. It was phenomenal. But the reason why that show became popular is because a woman wrote an ad, basically an ad canceling campaign. She would write the sponsors of Fox at the time saying, cancel Married with Children. It went out nationally, and it got huge attention, and so what did people do? They tuned in. But no, this has been going on for a long time. Back in the 90s, you had the Muslims who were upset at Aladdin because of the lyrics of the opening song. If you don't like, where they cut off your ears if they don't like your face, it's barbaric, but hey, it's home. Yeah, that's been changed for a long time. So, no, absolutely not. People have been offended by things forever.
Like, I would have watched this commercial in 2016 as a teenager and thought, oh, okay, whatever.
Well, which is probably why you're so fucked up in the head. That Hollywood culture does a number on you. Yeah, what's the big deal? They're just disparaging men's preferences, desires, and things that they like. What's the big deal about that? It doesn't have anything to do with me. They're not insulting me. Why would I even care? Do you see what she's doing here? And by the way, again, I'm not just trying to rip on her, but she is a perfect reflection of modern day Hollywood type women. It's why, like the Fresh and Fit podcast and the whatever podcast, it's why shows like those are so popular, because it gives you an insight into the thinking of these horrible women that have this entitled, narcissistic sense of themselves. And so Brett here, probably unknowingly, is revealing the fact that women don't care about men's issues. They just don't. She doesn't care. She's downplaying this the whole time. But Dylan Mulvaney she cares about because it's an offense to her. Because she's a woman and this man is pretending to be a woman. He's wearing woman face, and so she's offended. Let this be a lesson. Women don't care about men's issues, and they never will.
And moved on with my life. And now we're sitting around tweeting about it for 2 days because we think it...
There's been a boycott of Bud Light in defense of women for a couple weeks. Sweetheart, we can take a couple days to tweet about this bullshit feminist ad. What on earth is your point here? I don't understand. You're saying, well, we've taken a couple of days to criticize this obviously bullshit anti-man feminist ad. Well, I mean, 5 years ago we wouldn't have done that. No, 5 years ago we would have, and 10 years ago we would have, because it's repugnant. It is offensive to men. It's insulting to the women that were in those campaigns, in those ads, trying to remove agency from them, trying to say, well, there's something wrong with the advertising that you did, which is absolutely not true. In every way, this is bad. But Brett here, which, by the way, is a boy's name, I just mentioned that, Brett here is saying, well, I don't see anything about me in this, so I don't understand why people are upset. It's the most goddamn narcissistic, egotistical sentiment, and reinforces, once again, and I will reiterate this dozens if not hundreds of times, women don't care about men's issues. Not a little bit, not at all.
Some woke catastrophe. This is not the end of the world. I'm sorry if you think that it is, but in my opinion, it really is not. But anyway.
Because it doesn't affect you. Dylan Mulvaney affects you, so it's the end of the world. So it's worth fighting for. But this ad, which is egregious, and not only on a surface level is disgusting, but also putting that shit into the fertilizer is disgusting. Because it doesn't affect you, you don't think that it's a big deal. Because women, despite the claim, are not actually that empathetic. They're not. They're not more emotionally mature. They're more emotionally manipulative, but there's not really that connection with issues like this the way that men have. Men can defend a woman's issue, like Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney, on the surface of it, really isn't a men's issue. Other than Dylan Mulvaney is trying to pander this to kids, which then men step in and say this is wrong. But really, Dylan Mulvaney in and of themselves is a woman's issue because men are encroaching on women's spaces and getting more attention, getting more awards, and basically beating them out in every measurable way. You know, this is a huge problem because women don't like that. So men have taken up the cause with them and said, yeah, no, we don't like this either. But Brett here is being asked to, hey, you know what? Add some voice to defend men's preferences, things that they like. Come to the defense of men, and her thing is, no, I don't want to. This doesn't have anything to do with me. Why are people tweeting about this 2 days later? God damn. Whew.
Wait, back to the commercial. Some women do have a problem with how they have been traditionally depicted in...
Well, then fuck them bitches. If women have a problem with how they were depicted in classic ads that women chose to engage in, who the fuck cares?
beer ads or in any ads where they are half naked and their sexuality is helping sell the product to.
Who cares? I mean, this is genuinely the problem with women like Brett. It just, and I'm trying. I shouldn't try to pull my punches. I really shouldn't. For the sake of goodwill, I am. But trust me, let me just be perfectly clear with you. My instinct on this is to absolutely spit roast this woman alive. Because what she's saying here is astonishingly stupid. It's staggeringly ignorant. I mean, let's go back a minute. Just a little bit.
It is, but in my opinion, it really is not. But anyway, back to the commercial. Some women do have a problem with how they have been traditionally depicted in beer ads or in any ads where they are half naked and their sexuality is helping sell the product to men. And not just like die-hard liberal feminists. And I wouldn't say that these ads make me uncomfortable. It's not my favorite thing in the world, especially was not as a teenage girl who thought that those model bodies were unattainable. And I was like, why are these the women that I'm seeing? But my
Can I fucking call it or what? I didn't watch all of this video before. I watched like a couple minutes in the beginning, but can I fucking call it or what? I mean, it's just... I deserve a fucking medal. Unbelievable. We're going to watch that one more time, just so you can really soak that in and just really understand what we're dealing with here. Just really, truly comprehend what this woman is saying.
Sorry if you think that it is, but in my opinion, it really is not. But anyway, back to the commercial. Some women do have a problem with how they have been traditionally depicted in beer ads or in any ads where they are half naked and their sexuality is helping sell the product to men. And not just like die-hard liberal feminists. And I wouldn't say that these ads make me uncomfortable. It's not my favorite thing in the world, especially was not as a teenage girl who thought that those model bodies were unattainable. And I was like, why are these the women that I'm seeing? But my...
I'm tempted to play that back again because that's so unbelievably damning. That is so unbelievably damning. If you don't understand what she's saying that growing up, she didn't understand why these companies were using beautiful, attractive women to sell their product. And so she took an issue with that because she didn't look like the people in those particular adverts. This is, in my view, one of the problems with Hollywood feminism and just women in general. There is a lack of empathy. There's a lack of understanding, especially in Hollywood. But you think about what she said. You think about how she's reacting to this ad. This ad, well, actually, I should say I was wrong. It's not that she doesn't have a vested interest in this. You know, maybe I was wrong about that. She does. She agrees with what's being said in the ad. I just understood that now based on listening to her. She agrees that those old ads were problematic. But she can't come right out and say that because she realizes how bad that would look. And it would be bad. But this video is damning. You see, when it comes to Dylan Mulvaney, that is perfectly fine because women are being mocked. You know, it's woman face, essentially. So that type of ad is egregious, and we can boycott that. But these ads, which depict beautiful women way more attractive than Brett, those are a problem. Because you're selling women's sexuality. That's a major problem. sweetheart, it's not a problem. Not in any way, shape, matter, or form. And it's your type of selfish, disconnected, delusional, I mentioned selfish, but it's goddamn self-absorbed. How many more narcissistic titles can I add to this woman? But this is what it is. You heard it here first. In fact, I'm going to play it one more time because goddamn.
The world. I'm sorry if you think that it is, but in my opinion, it really is not. But anyway, back to the commercial. Some women do have a problem with how they have been traditionally depicted in beer ads or in any ads where they are half naked and their sexuality is helping sell the product to men. And not just like die-hard liberal feminists. And I wouldn't say that these ads make me uncomfortable. It's not my favorite thing in the world, especially was not as a teenage girl who thought that those model bodies were unattainable. And I was like, why are these the women that I'm seeing? But my solution is not.
Why were they the women that you were seeing? You know, if Matt Walsh were to do a reaction to this video and she weren't part of, the Daily Wire, he would say, well, because that's what people want to see. People don't want to see average overweight women in beer ads. You're selling them on a fantasy. And by the way, those body types are not unobtainable because the women who have those body types obtained them. Now, it doesn't mean that you will ever be able to obtain them because you may be short, you may be overweight, you're not very attractive. That is a certain set of circumstances. You'll never be able to obtain that, but that's okay. I will never be able to obtain the height of Shaquille O'Neal. So how fucking hubristic would it be if I came out here and say, well, they shouldn't show Shaq on promotional material because I can never obtain that body type. I can never be 6'7" or however tall he is, 7 foot, whatever. I can never be that tall, so therefore they shouldn't show that. Do you start to understand how absolutely fucking stupid this sentiment, this thinking is from Brett here? And I have no doubt this is what she actually believes. I have no doubt that this is what she actually believes. She was probably watching the ad going, yeah, what's the big deal? But she realizes, because she isn't an idiot, she realizes her audience and says, well, I can't just come right out and agree with this ad, but I would venture dollars to donuts that she actually did like the ad and agreed with it. Which is why she's taking this approach that I don't really see what the big deal is. This isn't the worst thing in the world. Almost sort of like trying to gaslight men a little bit, which is something that women traditionally do if they are in relationships with weak men. Trying to gaslight them, trying to like put it all on them. Like, oh no, you're just being crazy here. No, people are rightfully calling out this ad and it's pretty obnoxious the way that you're reacting to it, but how? What can you do?
Not to make it into some huge feminist takedown. I just would never be in one of those ads or campaigns if that was even in the realm of possibilities.
Yeah. Oh my God, Brett, please, for the love of God, stop. You're making this hard for me, and I don't mean that as some sort of sexual innuendo. Brett, no one would ask you to be in one of those ads. Brett, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you're like a 6 out of 10. Brett, no one would ask you to be in one of those ads. You look like the female version of Ben Shapiro. Okay? That is a fanfic that nobody wants. Okay? No one is asking you to be in that ad. No one would ask you to be in an ad. Do you understand? In order to be an ad, you have to be attractive. Brett, you are above average, but you're not attractive. You're not like immediately attractive. Like, wow, like that woman is stunning. You look at somebody like Megan Fox and you're like, damn, that woman is like a 9 out of 10. But these ads have women that are models, that are traditionally beautiful, that have assets that men want. But you, Brett, you don't. But do you like how she turned that back? Like, oh, I could be a model, but I choose not to because I don't like. No, you never could. And again, this isn't to disparage you. This is to divorce you from this notion. The reason that you weren't asked is because you have some principled standing. No, it's sort of like somebody saying, "Well, I would never go into the Baseball Hall of Fame." It's like you never played baseball. You're just an armchair quarterback. Like you're an armchair umpire.
In this universe, like if that was offered to me, I'd be like, probably not.
No one's gonna offer you that. If they do, it'll be from like OnlyFans to take pictures of your feet. No one is asking you to sell your beauty in that way. And if they are, they should be fired because they're derelict in their job.
Not. Again, what I said earlier, feminism is just so all over the place. It's like, do you want to be fully clothed or do you want to be half naked on OnlyFans? I think the discrepancy is that women think it's empowering when they're doing it themselves and they're putting themselves online half naked and they are shaking their ass on TikTok. But when a male-dominated industry or a male-owned beer brand puts them on a label, then it's the patriarchy. It's like, keep your clothes on or take... I do not care. It just does not feel like a big deal.
Johnson, why are you naked? Because my t-shirt sucks. Look at Gibson. He's wearing a true classic tee.
As a younger person, my mom kept that kind of content away from me, the half-naked stuff, for good reason, and that was her job. It was apparent she didn't want me looking up to those kinds of women, which I think is a good thing. But again, it wasn't the end of the world. So all of this to say, even though...
Well, clearly, given the fact that you were a Hollywood actress, I would say that your role models probably weren't that good anyway. I mean, she was an actress, by the way. Brett Cooper was. Well, I don't know. She wasn't like a star or anything, but she was in a couple movies. I would definitely not call those people role models.
Oh, it is cringe. Objectively, it's not Bud Light level. I don't think anybody is actually...
It doesn't have to be Bud Light level. It just has to be terrible and really bad, which it is. And people can criticize it. They can do two things at the same time. They can say, both of these ads are bad. It's really that simple. And then go and buy Coors.
Going to be boycotting Miller Lite. And also, it's important to note, it's not a new commercial, guys. Everybody's tweeting going, oh my God, can you believe...
No, it's from a month before the Dylan Mulvaney situation. But, it's like the statute of limitations only starts when people discover something. So, yeah, people discover this. And now they're upset by it. And it was a terrible, atrocious ad. And rightfully so, people should metaphorically speaking, kick the shit out of Miller Lite.
What Miller Lite did, like right after the Bud Light debacle, they're doing this. This is such a stupid business decision.
No, it was a month before.
This is crazy. They released this back in March. Here's an article about the product. Miller Lite.
Who cares? It's this year. It's recent. It's modern.
Is turning bad shit into good shit. This was on March 7th. And again, I know it's cringe, but we don't need to have our panties in a bunch about this. It's old.
Oh my God. The reason why you don't think this is worth getting your panties in a bunch and why you're using that type of language is because it doesn't affect you. That's all it is. You are a clearly narcissistic, delusional person that has a way overblown sense of your attractiveness and your intelligence level and everything else. I don't usually watch your content. People show me clips before and I've been like, oh yeah, she's pretty good on this sort of stuff. You're a moron. There's no other way to put it. You're an absolute Dunning-Kruger idiot. You are delusional to a point where I am just stunned. Because you don't understand why this ad is bad. You can't figure it out. You can't put all these different puzzle pieces together. This is like a puzzle for a 2-year-old. Everyone can understand why this ad is bad. It's, first of all, insulting to men, which are the main buyers of beer. It is insulting to the history of beer by pretending that women were responsible for the creation of it, trying to basically just, let women in. Oh, women invented this. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Across the board, in every measurable way, this ad is egregious. To vilify those old ads, which nothing was wrong with them, not in any way, shape, matter, or form. They were amazing ads. There's nothing wrong with them. And by the way, Brett, those ads, and I know as a woman this may be too much for you to understand, but those ads weren't made for you. Those ads were made for people like me. And they worked. And they were great. But now you're coming in here and saying, well, yeah, those ads were terrible. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. So I think that's where I'm going to end things. I don't want to go too much further. This was really quite illuminating. I'm sure on other issues she's much, much better, but on this one she absolutely shit the bed. There's no way around it. This was one of the dumbest takes I've seen on a topic, and it reveals what we've all known to be true about women. That they do lack empathy. They don't give a shit about men's issues. They don't care about the fact that this ad disparaging men and the things that they like could be a problem, because she doesn't have a problem with it. In fact, she's okay with the ad. Very clearly, she's okay with the ad. Because, don't you know, if she were to be offered that, God, the sheer fucking hubris. Brett, you're a slightly above average in attractiveness woman. No one would ever or should ever offer you the job as a supermodel for a beer company. Brett, God, I shouldn't say this, but Brett, you are the type of woman that men drink beer to make more attractive. You're just at that point where men could be like, if I have enough beer, this woman who's a 6 out of 10, maybe I can make her into an 8. We have fun here, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, that'll do it for today's video. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you next time.